Welcome to a quiet place, a slow and gentle place, somewhere far away from the noise of today and the worries of the world. You are safe here, and you are comfortable, and there is nothing at all that you need to do, nothing to think about, nothing to remember. You only need to listen if you want to, or perhaps you will simply let the words drift past you like a warm breeze moving slowly through an open window. Tonight, we are going somewhere old, somewhere very, very old. We are going to ancient Rome, not the Rome of battles or speeches, not the Rome of emperors standing on great stages, but the quiet Rome, the small Rome, the Rome of ordinary mornings and slow afternoons and warm evenings that settle gently into night. The Rome of people who woke up each day and went about their lives in a calm and steady way, just as you go about yours. There is nothing here to startle you, nothing here to worry you, only the soft sounds of a city long ago going about its day. You can close your eyes now or let them grow heavy and simply listen and let yourself be carried somewhere quiet and far away. So let us begin. It is early morning in Rome. The sky above the city is still dark, but at its edges, far to the east, there is the faintest suggestion of grey, the kind of grey that comes just before colour returns to the world. It is not yet light, but the darkness has softened. The air is cool, pleasantly cool, the way air feels before the sun has had time to warm it. You are lying on a simple bed, in a simple room. The bed is low and firm, and you are resting on a wool blanket, spread over a thin mattress stuffed with straw. It is not a soft bed by the standards you might know, but it is familiar to you, and your body has long since learned its shape, and so it is comfortable in its own way. The blanket is pulled up around your shoulders, and the room is dim and still. The walls of the room are smooth plaster, painted a deep reddish colour, the colour of earth, or of clay left to dry in the sun. There is a small oil lamp on a shelf near the door, but it has long since burned out, and the room is dark. The floor beneath the bed is cool stone, and somewhere outside the window, which is just a narrow opening in the wall covered with a wooden shutter, you can hear the faint sounds of the city beginning to stir. It is very quiet, but it is not entirely silent. There is the distant sound of a cart moving slowly over stone, the wooden wheels turning slowly, the heavy rumble of them passing somewhere down the street below, and then fading, and then gone. There is the soft sound of voices somewhere far away, low and unhurried, the sound of two people talking quietly before the day has properly begun, and then that sound too drifts away. You do not need to get up yet. There is no hurry. The day will come when it comes, and it will be a slow day, a gentle day. You lie still and listen to the sounds of the early morning, the creak of a door somewhere in the building, the distant call of a bird settling on a rooftop somewhere above you, the very faint sound of water, perhaps a fountain, somewhere in the street below, trickling quietly in the early dark. You breathe in slowly and breathe out again. The air in the room smells faintly of lamp oil and of the wool of your blanket and of the stone walls, that particular cool, clean smell that stone has when the night air has cooled it down. You breathe in again, slowly, and let the breath out gently. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be just yet. The light outside the shuttered window begins to change, very slowly. The deep dark of night giving way to something slightly softer, slightly paler. You can see now the thin lines of light at the edges of the shutter, hair-thin strips of grey, and then, gradually, a warmer tone, almost golden, as the sun begins its slow climb somewhere beyond the rooftops of the city. You stretch your arms above your head, slowly, feeling the pleasant pull along your sides, and then let your arms fall back and lie still again for a moment. The sounds outside have grown very slightly louder now, more carts in the distance, more voices, the city beginning its day the way it always does, steadily, unhurriedly, one sound at a time. You sit up slowly, and put your feet on the cool stone floor. The floor is smooth beneath your feet, worn smooth by many years of footsteps, and it is cool and pleasant against your skin. You sit on the edge of the bed for a moment and look at the dim room around you, at the red plaster walls, at the wooden shelf with the empty lamp, at the small clay bowl on a low table in the corner. Everything is exactly as it always is, quiet and still and familiar. You stand up slowly and move to the corner of the room where a clay basin sits on a wooden stand. Beside it is a small clay jug, and you pour a little water from the jug into the basin. The water is cool, cold almost, and when you dip your hands into it and lift them to your face, the coolness wakes you gently, not sharply, but in a slow and pleasant way, like stepping into the shade on a warm afternoon. You splash the water on your face, once, and then again, and run your wet hands back over your hair. You dry your hands on a piece of rough linen cloth hanging from a hook on the wall, and then you begin to dress, slowly and without hurry. You pull on a simple tunic, a long piece of wool cloth, off-white in color, the color of undyed wool, soft from many washings. You fasten it at the shoulder with a small pin and tie a thin leather belt around your waist. You put on your sandals, plain leather sandals with thick soles, and lace the leather straps around your ankles, slowly, one foot and then the other. And now you are ready for the day, or nearly so. You pick up a small piece of bread from the table, hard and dry from yesterday, and you eat it slowly, standing in your room, chewing slowly and looking at the patch of light that is growing now at the edges of the shutter. The bread is plain and slightly stale, but you are not very hungry. Not yet. It is enough just to have something, a small taste of the morning, before you open the door and step out into the day. You open the wooden door of your room and step out into the narrow hallway of the building. The building is called an insula, a word that means island, and it is a tall building, several stories high, with many rooms where many people live. You live on one of the lower floors, which is quieter and cooler than the upper floors. The hallway is dim and smells faintly of wood and of the cooking that someone nearby has already started. Something warm and faintly savory, oil perhaps, and something grain-like, the smell of a simple breakfast being prepared. You walk down the hallway to the staircase and descend slowly, the wooden steps creaking softly beneath your feet, one step, and then another, until you reach the ground floor and push open the heavy wooden door that opens out onto the street. The street outside is narrow, barely wide enough for two people to pass each other comfortably. The stones beneath your feet are large and worn smooth in the center, where feet have passed for many, many years. They are set close together, uneven in places, and there are raised stepping stones set across the street at intervals so that people can cross without stepping in the gutter that runs down the center. The stones are damp from the night, and the morning light, which is now golden and low, catches the dampness and makes the street glow very faintly. You stand in the doorway for a moment and look up and down the street. It is quiet, but not empty. A few figures are moving in the distance, slowly, people on their way to the beginning of their days. A woman is standing in a doorway not far from yours, not looking at anything in particular, just standing, taking the morning air. A cat, a thin, grey cat, is walking very carefully along the top of a low wall nearby, placing each paw with great deliberateness, and then sitting down abruptly and staring at nothing. The air outside is fresh and cool, cooler than the air in your room, and it smells of the street, of stone, and of the faint smell of the food stalls that will soon open further down the road. And underneath all of that, something green and faintly earthy, the smell of the garden of a large house somewhere behind the walls to your right. You breathe in the morning air slowly and feel it move through you, cool and clean. You begin to walk, slowly. There is no particular hurry. The morning is still young and the day will unfold in its own time. You walk along the narrow street, your sandals making a soft sound on the worn stones. The sound of leather on stone, soft and steady. You pass a doorway hung with a string of dried herbs, rosemary perhaps, or bay. The scent of them is sharp and pleasant as you walk past. You pass a wall covered in faded painted letters, advertisements and announcements of various kinds. The letters faded to a dull red and brown by many seasons of sun and rain. You do not read them. You have seen them many times before, and you walk past them without stopping. The street opens out slightly as you turn a corner and joins a slightly wider road, one of the many veins of the city that carry people from one place to another. Here there is a little more activity. A man is pushing a small wooden cart loaded with clay pots, moving slowly and steadily along the road, the pots clinking softly against each other with each small bump in the stones. Two women are walking together, talking quietly, their voices low and unhurried. A young boy is sitting on a step, eating something from a piece of cloth, looking at the ground. Further along the wider street, you can see the first of the food stalls opening for the morning. A thermopolium, a place where hot food is sold. The counter is a wide, solid slab of stone with large clay jars set into it. The jars containing warm porridge, warm wine, warm soups, things to begin the day with. The man behind the counter is stirring something in one of the jars with a long ladle, moving the ladle in slow, steady circles, not looking at anything in particular. The steam rising from the jar drifts upward in the cool morning air and disappears. You slow your walk as you approach the thermopolium, and you stop, and you lean against the stone counter. The stone is cool and solid under your hands. The man behind the counter looks up at you briefly and gives a small, unhurried nod, and you nod back and point to one of the jars. He lifts the ladle and spoons some warm porridge into a small clay bowl, a pale, creamy porridge made from spelt grain, cooked until it is soft and thick. He sets the bowl on the counter in front of you, and you wrap your hands around it, feeling the warmth of it against your palms. You eat the porridge slowly, small spoonfuls, the grain soft and mild on your tongue, slightly sweet from a little honey that the man has stirred into it. You eat without hurry, looking out at the street as it moves slowly past you, watching a dog trot along the other side of the road, watching a man carry a bundle of wood on his shoulder, watching a child run past very quickly and then disappear around a corner. The street moves around you at its own slow pace, and you watch it all from your place at the counter. You finish the porridge and set the bowl back on the counter, and you straighten up and stand for a moment, looking down the road. The sun is higher now, still low, but clearly golden, the light of it falling in long, pale bars across the tops of buildings and down into the narrow gaps between them. Warm already, the kind of warmth that promises a pleasant day. Not too hot, not too cool, just warm. You put your hands in the folds of your belt and begin to walk again. The streets grow a little busier as the morning progresses, but still not what you would call busy. Still quiet by the standards of the afternoon when the city will be fully awake. People move past you without hurrying, each going about their own small business. A woman with a basket of bread on her arm, a man with a bundle of documents tied with a cord, two old men walking slowly together, hands clasped behind their backs, looking at the ground. The ordinary people of the city, beginning their ordinary day. You turn another corner and find yourself in a small square, not a grand space, just a widening of the streets where several roads meet. In the center of the square is a small fountain, a round basin of stone with a pipe sticking up from the center, water running from it in a constant, thin stream. The sound of the water is clear and pleasant in the morning air, a soft, steady trickling that fills the small square with a gentle sound. A few people have gathered at the fountain, filling clay jugs with water, talking quietly among themselves. A girl of perhaps 10 is dipping a cup into the basin and drinking from it slowly, looking up at the sky over the rooftops with an expression of mild, pleasant vacancy. You walk slowly around the edge of the square, listening to the sound of the water, the sound of the low voices, the sound of your own sandals on the stones. There is a small temple on one side of the square, just a modest building, a few steps up from the street, a narrow doorway, a simple carved pediment above the door. You pause for a moment and look at it. The stone is pale and slightly warm-looking in the morning light. The door is open, and inside you can see the dim interior. A small flame burning on an altar, the faint smell of incense drifting out through the open door. Something woody and faintly sweet. You stand for a moment and breathe it in, and then you walk on. The market street is not far from the square. You can hear it before you see it. Not a loud noise, just a gentle layering of sounds. Voices talking, the occasional clink of metal or clay, the soft sound of cloth being shaken out. And as you round the corner, there it is. A row of stalls set up along both sides of a slightly wider street. Awnings of rough cloth stretched over wooden frames to shade the goods from the sun. The sellers sitting or standing behind their stalls with the patient, settled look of people who have done this every day for many years. You walk slowly along the market street, looking at the things on display, not looking for anything in particular, just looking. One stall has baskets of dried lentils and chickpeas, pale and dusty looking. Small scoops set into the baskets so that people can measure out what they want. Another stall has dried fish laid out on a flat board, dark and salt-cured, the smell of them sharp and strong. Another has olives in clay pots, black and green olives glistening in brine, their sharp, salty smell mixing with the smell of the fish and the smell of the dried herbs hanging from the awning above. A stall selling cloth catches your eye, lengths of fabric in muted colours, off-white and pale brown, and a dull blue-grey, soft wool and rough linen. The woman behind the stall is sitting on a low stool, spinning thread with a hand spindle, the spindle turning slowly in her fingers, the thread drawing out fine and even. She does not look up as you pass. She is watching the thread. Further along, there is a stall selling small clay pots and lamps, dozens of them, stacked and arranged in neat rows, the lamps small and simple in shape, each one like a cupped hand with a spout for the wick and a hole at the top for the oil. They are the same shape they have always been, and you have seen them all your life, but you look at them anyway as you pass, the way you always look at familiar things. A child runs past you from behind, very close, nearly brushing your arm, and disappears between two stalls ahead. You watch the gap where the child went and then look back at the stalls, at the steady, quiet activity of the morning market, the sellers and the buyers moving around each other slowly and without fuss, words exchanged in low, unhurried tones, coins passing from one hand to another, small things being wrapped in cloth or placed in baskets. You walk to the end of the market street and stand for a moment at the corner. The sun is fully up now, well above the rooftops, and the shadows on the street have grown short and defined. The air is warming pleasantly. You can feel the warmth of the sunlight on your arms and on the top of your head. It is a comfortable warmth, the kind that settles into your skin and makes you feel slow and content. You decide to walk toward the river. There is a road that runs toward it, and you know it well. A straight road by Roman standards, which means it is nearly straight, but not quite, curving very gently to the left as it goes, following some contour of the ground beneath the stones. You have walked this road many times, and you walk it now without thinking much about it. One step and then another, the sound of your sandals on the stones, the warmth of the sun on your back. The buildings along this road are a mixture. Some are tall insulae, like the one you live in, their upper floors draped with lines of washing hung out to dry in the morning sun, lengths of white and off-white cloth hanging still in the warm air. Others are lower buildings, single-story workshops and storerooms with wide, open fronts that fold back to expose the interior to the street. You walk past a workshop where a man is hammering something metal on an anvil, a steady, rhythmic sound, not fast, not urgent, just steady, the sound of work being done at its own pace. You walk past a bakery, the warm, yeasty smell of bread baking in a stone oven drifting out through the open doorway. Inside you can see the deep, domed shape of the oven, the orange glow of the fire inside it. A man in a flowery apron sliding a long wooden paddle under a round loaf, the loaf pale and golden on the bottom. Everything about the bakery is warm and slow feeling. The warm air, the warm smell, the slow movements of the baker. A little further along, you walk past a spot where several men are sitting against a wall in the sun, older men mostly, sitting on low stools or on the ground itself, not doing anything in particular. One is sleeping, his chin on his chest, his hands loose in his lap. Another is looking at the street with the mild, unfocused gaze of someone who is thinking about nothing at all. A third is talking quietly to a fourth, both of them nodding slowly. The image of easy, unhurried morning rest. The road begins to slope downward slightly as it nears the river. You can smell the river before you see it, a green, damp, slightly muddy smell. The smell of moving water and of the reeds and grasses that grow along the banks. And then you come around a slight bend and there it is, the Tiber, broad and brown and slow-looking, moving along between its banks with a heavy, unhurried ease, the surface of it catching the morning light and sending it back in long, broken ripples. You walk down to the bank and stand at the edge of the stone embankment, looking out at the river. A flat-bottomed boat is moving slowly upstream on the far side. Two men at the oars, rowing in long, steady strokes. The oars dipping and pulling and rising, dipping and pulling and rising. The rhythm of it very slow and peaceful to watch. The boat is loaded with amphorae, tall clay jars stoppered with wax, stacked carefully in the bottom of the boat, each one containing oil or wine or fish sauce. The slow commerce of the river going quietly about its business. You stand there for some time, just looking at the water, watching the current move past. There are small eddies near the bank where the water catches on some irregularity in the stone and turns in on itself. Small circles of water spinning slowly and then dissolving. There is a particular peace that moving water brings, the sense of something going on in a steady, untroubled way. The water moving past just as it always has, just as it will continue to, carrying its brown weight down toward the sea in the same slow way that it has always done. A heron is standing very still on a small stone near the water's edge, a little way along the bank, perfectly still, long neck folded in slightly, looking at the water with a patient, remote expression. You watch the heron for a while, and the heron watches the water, and the boat moves slowly up the far side of the river, and the water turns in its small circles near the bank, and everything is very quiet and very still. After a while you turn and walk back up the slope toward the main part of the city, back up through the smell of the river and into the warmer, drier smell of the streets. The city is fully awake now. Mid-morning has come and the streets are at their busiest. But even at their busiest, the streets of this neighborhood are not very busy. Just a steady, gentle movement of people going about their days, and you move among them easily, one person among many, not noticed and not noticing much in particular. You are feeling the first hints of proper hunger now, not urgent, just a gentle awareness that it would be pleasant to eat something. You make your way back toward the market street, or a different street like it, one of the streets where food is sold throughout the day. You find a spot where a woman is selling flatbreads cooked on a hot stone. She pulls one off the stone with her fingers and tears it in half and folds a little of the warm chickpea paste from the clay pot beside her into each half, and you take it from her and eat it slowly, standing in the street. The bread is warm from the stone and slightly crisp at the edges and soft in the middle. The chickpea paste is warm and dense and savory, seasoned with something sharp and herby. You eat it slowly, bite by bite, tasting each mouthful, not rushing. There is nowhere to rush to. You stand in the warm sunlight and eat your lunch and watch the street go past. After you have eaten, you walk slowly to a small garden, or what passes for a garden in this part of the city. A small courtyard belonging to a public building, open to the street through a wide archway. Inside is a square of sky overhead and a low garden laid out in simple geometric beds, clipped rosemary bushes in neat mounds, a row of bay trees in clay pots along one wall, A small pool of water in the center, still and reflective, the surface of it perfectly calm, showing the sky above in miniature. You sit on the edge of the pool, on the smooth stone rim of it, and look at the water. The water is still and clear. You can see the bottom of the pool through it, pale stone, streaked with light. A few small fish move very slowly near the bottom, their fins barely moving, just drifting. You watch the fish for a while, their slow, aimless movements, drifting this way and a little that way, turning very slowly, pausing, drifting again. The sun is directly overhead now, or close to it. The light is warm and even, without strong shadows, and in the garden it is quiet, just the very faint sound of water from somewhere, a thin thread of water feeding the pool from a pipe in the wall. The lightest possible sound, almost more sensation than sound. The rosemary bushes smell sharp and clean in the warm air. The bay trees smell darker and more complex, woody and spiced. You feel the warmth of the sun on your shoulders and the back of your neck, and the cool of the stone through your tunic, and you close your eyes for a moment, just for a moment, listening to the faint sound of the water, the distant sounds of the city beyond the garden walls, very faint from here, just a wash of sound, voices and footsteps, and the occasional creak or clatter all mixed together into something soft and undifferentiated, like the sound of the sea heard from far inland, like the sound of nothing much at all. You sit in the garden for a long time. There is nothing particular calling you anywhere. The afternoon is long and warm and still, and you sit on the edge of the pool and watch the fish move slowly in the clear water, and listen to the thin sound of the water feeding the pool, and breathe the sharp smell of the rosemary, and let the sun warm your back. In the middle of the afternoon, when the heat of the day is at its most settled, when everything slows to its slowest, you make your way to the bathhouse. This is something many people do, a regular and pleasant part of the day. The bathhouse is a building of modest size, not grand, just a practical and comfortable place. The entrance is a low doorway set into a plain stone wall. Inside, a short corridor lined with pegs where people hang their clothes. You undress slowly and hang your tunic and belt on one of the pegs. And then you walk through the inner doorway and into the first of the bathing rooms, the tepidarium, the warm room. The air in here is warm and damp, a pleasantly heavy warmth. The walls are smooth plaster and the floor is warm stone, warm from the heat that rises through it from the furnace below. You stand for a moment and let the warm air settle around you, feeling it on your skin, the warmth of it moving through you slowly. You sit on one of the low stone benches that run along the walls, and you sit there for a while, just sitting in the warm air, not doing much of anything. There are a few other people in the room. A man lying on his back on a stone bench, one arm over his eyes, perfectly still. Two women sitting together at the far end, talking in low voices. The sound of their talking very quiet and indistinct from where you are sitting. After a while you move into the caldarium, the hot room. The heat here is more intense, a deep, enveloping heat. The air thick and damp. The stone floor very warm under your feet. You lower yourself into the hot pool, into the water that is almost too warm, but not quite. The water that surrounds you completely and holds you and pulls all the tension out of your muscles very slowly. You sit in the water up to your shoulders and feel your whole body soften, every muscle growing heavier and slower. The hot water makes everything slow. Your thoughts grow slow and simple in the heat. You look at the walls of the room, the pale plaster, the flicker of the oil lamps that light the dim space, the curl of steam rising from the surface of the water. You watch the steam rise and disappear, in the slow rhythmic way of all steam above hot water, and it is very peaceful to watch. You sit in the hot water for a long time, so long that you lose track of how long. Time in the caldarium always feels different from time outside, slower, more stretched out. The minutes passing like drops of water falling from a great height, one at a time, each one slow and complete. You close your eyes and feel the heat, the weight of the water, the total comfort of it. Eventually you rise slowly from the pool and move back through the tepidarium and out into the cooler air of the dressing room. And your skin is pink and warm and clean, and you dress again slowly. The rough wool of your tunic familiar and comfortable against your warm skin. You feel pleasantly heavy and slow, the way you feel after a long warm bath, the way the body feels when it has been properly warmed through and allowed to rest. You spend some time in the afternoon sitting in the shade of a covered walkway, a portico, a row of stone columns holding up a low roof that stretches along the front of a public building. The shade under the portico is deep and cool and pleasant. The stone columns are wide and solid and warm to the touch on the side facing the sun, cool on the side facing the wall. You rest your back against one of the columns and look out at the street. From here in the shade, you watch the afternoon pass very slowly. You watch a man across the street who is sitting in his doorway mending something, a piece of harness or a strap, working at it slowly with a bone needle and a length of cord, his head bent, his hands moving in small, careful stitches. He works for a while and then stops and looks at his work and then begins again, the same small movements, the needle going in and coming out, in and out. You watch a woman sweep her step, the same motion again and again, the broom moving back and forth, the bristles whispering on the stone. She sweeps without hurrying, without looking at anything in particular, her mind somewhere else entirely. The broom moving in its steady rhythm regardless. A cat appears from somewhere and sits down in the middle of the street in a patch of sunlight and begins to wash itself with great thoroughness and deliberateness, licking one paw and drawing it over its ear, then the other paw, then its face, then beginning again. The cat is completely absorbed in the task. The street exists around it without troubling it at all. You watch the cat for a while, and the man with his harness, and the woman with her broom, and the people passing, and the slow movement of the afternoon light across the faces of the buildings opposite, the shadows shifting imperceptibly, the stone changing color very slowly as the sun moves, from bright white to pale gold, and you feel the cool of the shade against your back and the warmth of the air around you. And it is very peaceful, very still, the kind of afternoon that asks nothing of you at all. A pigeon lands on the stone near your feet, walks a few steps with its bobbing mechanical walk, pecks at something on the ground, walks a few more steps, pecks again, then takes off again with a clatter of wings and is gone. You look at the spot where it was, at the pale stone of the portico floor, worn smooth here by many years of feet. An old man comes and sits against another column nearby. He lowers himself down slowly, one hand on the column for balance, and settles himself with the careful movements of someone whose joints have stiffened over many years. He folds his hands in his lap and closes his eyes almost immediately, his chest rising and falling very slowly, his face relaxed and still. He falls asleep, it seems, almost at once, or perhaps he is only resting. It is impossible to tell, and it does not matter. You lean your head back against the column and look up at the underside of the portico roof. The stone ceiling above you is dim and slightly rough. There are small cracks in it in places, fine lines running through the stone like the lines on a very old hand. And in one corner there is a smudge of dark where a lamp has smoked against the ceiling over many years, leaving its mark, the record of many evenings of small flames burning in this place. You look at the ceiling for a long time, tracing the fine cracks with your eyes, following them from one place to another, the way you might follow the path of a stream on a map. Here a crack branches, here one fades out and disappears. Here two run parallel for a while and then slowly diverge. It is not interesting exactly, but it is something to look at, something quiet and still and endlessly fine in its detail. After a while you close your own eyes and just sit in the shade, the column cool behind your back, the air warm around you, the sounds of the street very soft and far away, the distant murmur of voices, the occasional sound of a cart somewhere, the light clatter of the pigeon somewhere on the roof above, all of it very gentle, very distant, just a soft wash of sound that means the world is there and going about its business without any particular need of you. You sit there for a long time until the light tells you that the afternoon has deepened, and you open your eyes and look at the street again. Everything the same, a little warmer in color now, a little more golden, the shadows a little longer. You walk home through the afternoon streets. The heat of the day has peaked and is now very gradually beginning to ease, almost imperceptibly. But there is a slight difference in the light, a very faint suggestion of gold beginning to creep into it. The streets are still full of people, the familiar slow movement of the afternoon, vendors still at their stalls, people walking with their baskets and their bundles, the same quiet, unhurried rhythm that has carried the city through the day. You stop at a stall and buy a few figs, small and dark and soft, and eat them as you walk, the sweetness of them spreading slowly on your tongue, seeds small and grainy, the skin slightly chewy. They are very good figs, and you eat them slowly, one at a time, tasting each one. Back in your building, you climb the stairs, slowly, the wooden steps creaking in their familiar way, and you open the door of your room and step inside. The room is warm from the afternoon sun that has been falling on the wall outside, and the air in it is still and close, but pleasantly so. You open the wooden shutter a little to let in some air, and immediately the sounds of the street come in softly, the distant voices, the faint creak of a cart, the thin sound of a dog somewhere below. You sit down on the edge of your bed and rest, just sitting, your hands in your lap. The afternoon light coming through the open shutter falls in a pale bar across the floor, and you watch the dust in it, the tiny points of dust moving very slowly in the air, caught in the light, drifting. The dust moves without any direction, turning and drifting in the small currents of air that move through the room, each piece of dust following its own slow, random path through the light. You watch the dust for a while, and then you lie down, just for a short while, just to rest. You pull the blanket up over yourself loosely, the wool soft and familiar, and you close your eyes and listen to the sounds coming through the open shutter, the distant voices, the faint sounds of the street, the city going quietly about its afternoon. When you wake from your rest, the light through the shutter has changed. It is now the particular golden light of late afternoon, richer and darker than the midday light, the light that turns everything it touches a warm amber color. You lie still for a moment and look at the bar of light on the floor. It has moved since you fell asleep, shifted across the floor as the sun moved, and it is now falling partly on the wall, the plaster of the wall glowing warm amber where the light touches it. Back in your building, you climb the stairs slowly, the wooden steps creaking in their familiar way, and you open the door of your room and step inside. The room is warm from the afternoon sun that has been falling on the wall outside, and the air in it is still and close, but pleasantly so. You open the wooden shutter a little to let in some air, and immediately the sounds of the street come in softly, the distant voices, the faint creak of a cart, the thin sound of a dog somewhere below. You sit down on the edge of your bed and rest, just sitting, your hands in your lap. The afternoon light coming through the open shutter falls in a pale bar across the floor, and you watch the dust in it, the tiny points of dust moving very slowly in the air, caught in the light, drifting. The dust moves without any direction, turning and drifting in the small currents of air that move through the room, each piece of dust following its own slow, random path through the light. You watch the dust for a while, and then you lie down, just for a short while, just to rest. You pull the blanket up over yourself loosely, the wool soft and familiar, and you close your eyes and listen to the sounds coming through the open shutter, the distant voices, the faint sounds of the street, the city going quietly about its afternoon. When you wake from your rest, the light through the shutter has changed. It is now the particular golden light of late afternoon, richer and darker than the midday light, the light that turns everything it touches a warm amber color. You lie still for a moment and look at the bar of light on the floor. It has moved since you fell asleep, shifted across the floor as the sun moved, and it is now falling partly on the wall, the plaster of the wall glowing warm amber where the light touches it. You lie still for a long time after waking, not moving, not thinking much, just looking at the bar of amber light on the wall, watching it very slowly shift, so slowly that you have to look away and look back to notice any change at all. The movement of sunlight through a room over the course of an afternoon is one of the slowest things in the world and one of the most peaceful to watch. The sounds from outside the shutter have changed slightly. The sounds of people going home, a different quality to the voices, a tiredness in them, a sense of the day's work being done, footsteps that are a little slower now than they were in the morning. The street is beginning its long, gradual wind down toward evening. You hear from somewhere in the building the sound of someone grinding grain, the low rhythmic grinding of a hand mill, stone on stone, a slow circular sound that has no beginning and no end, just the same motion repeated and repeated and repeated, the sound of something ordinary being done at the end of an ordinary day. You listen to it for a while, the steady grinding sound, before it too stops and the building is quiet again. You get up slowly and splash water on your face again from the basin and tidy yourself and go back out into the street. The evening is coming, not fast. Rome's evenings come slowly in the warm months, the day bleeding gradually into night over a long, unhurried interval. The light is golden now and growing slowly more orange, the shadows long and reaching across the stones of the streets. Everything in this light seems slightly unreal, slightly soft, the edges of things less sharp than they are in the bright midday sun. The streets in the evening have a different quality to them, a little slower, a little more relaxed. The day's work is winding down. Some of the stalls are closing, the vendors packing their things away with the slow, careful movements of people who have been standing all day and are ready to rest. A woman is sweeping the stones in front of her doorway with a stiff broom. The sound of the broom on the stones, a soft, rhythmic sound. Shh, 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 back and forth. You walk slowly, enjoying the evening air, which has cooled slightly from the heat of the afternoon. Pleasantly warm now rather than hot. The kind of evening air that it is a pleasure simply to be inside of. A group of children are playing in a small open space between two buildings, moving around each other in some game that has its own complicated rules. Their movements quick and light, the sound of them a distant, high murmur. You pass them by and their sounds fade behind you. You turn down a narrow side street that you know well, one that runs behind a row of larger buildings and then opens onto a small, quiet square. This square is not one of the city's important places. It is just a square, a widening of the space where a few streets come together, with a low wall around a tree in the center. An old plane tree with wide, spreading branches and bark that peels away in pale patches. The tree's leaves move slightly in the evening breeze, a dry, whispering sound. You sit on the low wall around the tree for a while. The stone of the wall is warm from the day's sun, warm through your tunic, a deep, stored warmth, the warmth that stone collects slowly over a long, sunny day and gives back slowly in the evening. You rest your hands on the wall on either side of you and look up at the tree. The leaves of the plane tree are large and pale green, and in the low evening light they seem to glow very slightly, each one catching the light differently depending on its angle, some pale and bright, some darker and more shadowed, all of them moving very gently, the whole tree a slow, rustling conversation with the breeze. You watch the leaves for a while, the way they move without any particular pattern, some stilling while others move, the light shifting through them. A sparrow lands on a branch not far above your head, sits there for a moment looking around with its quick, nervous movements, and then is gone. And then another sparrow lands in the same spot and sits for a moment and is gone, as if the branch is a resting place that sparrows visit in sequence, each one taking their turn. The sky above the tree is still light, a pale, washed blue with the faintest suggestion of color at the western edges, not quite gold anymore, something softer and more diffuse, a kind of luminous grey-pink that is the color of the sky in the last half hour of daylight. The city around you is settling into its evening quiet, the sounds growing softer, more spread out, each sound more distinct because there are fewer of them. You sit under the tree until the light has nearly gone, until the sky above has turned a deep, clear blue, and the first stars have appeared, and the air has cooled to something distinctly pleasant, and the city around you is quiet and warm and still. Then you walk home, through the quiet streets, past the darkened stores, past the buildings with their small lit windows, past the fountain in the square, past the doorways where the evening lamps have been lit and are burning their small, steady orange flames. And the stones of the streets are blue-grey in the last light, and the air smells of the city's evening, of stone and smoke, and the last traces of the day's food. The smell of cooking is in the air now, from the insulae on either side of the street, from the thermopolia that are preparing their evening offerings, the smell of beans cooking in oil, of bread warming, of something meat-like and savoury, the smells layering over each other and mixing with the smell of the cooling stones and the faint smell of the dust in the air. It is the smell of the city's evening meal beginning, the smell of the end of the day. You stop at a thermopolium near your building, a different one from the morning, or perhaps the same one, you are not sure. You eat your evening meal standing at the counter, a bowl of lentil soup, thick and earthy and warm, with a piece of bread to dip into it. The soup is seasoned with something, cumin perhaps, or coriander, a warm, slightly dusty spice that makes the soup taste deep and satisfying. You eat it slowly, spooning the thick soup carefully, tearing small pieces of the bread and dipping them, eating with no hurry at all. The last of the daylight is going now. The sky above the rooftops has turned a deep, warm orange, and then, as you watch, very slowly, it begins to shift toward a paler, softer color, a kind of dusty rose, and then a pale grey-blue. The first star appears, just one, very faint, near the horizon, and then another, and slowly, slowly, the sky darkens and the stars appear. The oil lamps are being lit now. You can see them appearing in doorways and in the windows of buildings, small, warm, orange points of light, each one illuminating a small circle of the wall or the doorstep around it. The city transitioning from the light of the sun to the light of oil flames, dozens of small fires holding the dark at bay. You walk back to your building, up the familiar staircase, the wooden steps creaking, the smell of the hallway, of wood and stone and other people's cooking. You open the door of your room and go inside and light the small oil lamp on the shelf, the flame appearing with a small, quiet flicker and then steadying into a calm, warm glow that fills the room softly, the walls of the room glowing red in the lamplight, the shadows deep and soft in the corners. You sit for a while on the edge of your bed, the lamp burning quietly on its shelf, the sounds of the city outside the shutter growing slowly quieter, the voices in the street fewer and further between, the carts no longer moving. The market sounds long gone, just the occasional footstep on the stones, the distant bark of a dog, the cry of a night bird somewhere above the rooftops. The night is very quiet. The city has largely gone to sleep, or is going to sleep, easing itself into the quiet that comes at the end of every day. You can hear, very faintly, the sound of the fountain in the square, the thin, steady trickling of it, the same sound it makes all day and all night, the same sound it has made for years. It is a very peaceful sound, the sound of water moving in a steady, unchanging way, not caring about the day or the night, just flowing. You lie down on your bed and pull the blanket up and look at the ceiling of the room. The ceiling is plain plaster. The lamplight reaches it in a warm glow, and the shadow of the lamp itself is cast up there, a soft, dark shape moving very slightly with the tiny movements of the flame. The flame of the lamp moves very slowly, almost not at all, just a tiny, gentle wavering, so slight that you are not sure whether you are seeing it move or only imagining it. The light it casts is warm and amber and soft. It is the kind of light that makes everything look old and simple and calm. The kind of light that has always meant the end of the day, the signal that it is time to rest. You breathe in slowly and breathe out again. The room is warm, the blanket is familiar. The sounds from outside have faded to almost nothing, just the very faint sound of the city breathing in its sleep. A distant sound, a background sound, the sound of stone and air, and the occasional soft movement of someone, somewhere, still awake. You are warm and comfortable, and the day is over. The day that was always ordinary, and always the same, and always sufficient. The day of walking the worn stones of the streets, of standing at the counter eating porridge in the cool morning, of watching the river move in its slow brown way, of sitting in the warm garden by the still pool, of the bath and the warmth and the slow return to your room, of the lentil soup in the evening, of the orange sky going to grey, going to the first soft dark of night. All of it is done now. All of it has passed, the way every day passes, gently and without drama, into the quiet of night. And you are here, in your small room, in your familiar bed, with the warm lamp burning on the shelf, and the city quiet around you. And there is nothing left to do, nothing left to think about. The day is finished, and you can rest. The lamplight wavers very slightly, so slightly, just the smallest movement of the flame, and then it steadies again, and the room is still and warm and quiet. You feel the weight of your body on the mattress, the familiar shape of it, the blanket soft on top of you, your hands at your sides, your feet warm, your breathing slow, in and out, in and out. The sounds from outside are very far away now, or perhaps they have stopped entirely. It is hard to say. There is just a kind of soft, warm silence, the silence that comes when a city rests, when the stones are cooling in the night air, when the fountains run unseen in the dark, when the lamps in the windows are being put out one by one, each small orange light going dark, and then another, and then another. The city is dark and quiet, and you are part of its quiet. Just one small room in a large building on a narrow street in a city that goes on in every direction. Streets and buildings and gardens and courtyards and other small rooms where other people are also lying in their beds, also breathing slowly, also letting the day go. The ceiling of your room is very dim now. The lamp is burning low, the oil almost gone, and the light is very faint and warm, and the shadows are deep and soft. You can barely make out the ceiling at all. It has become just a darkness above you, a soft and gentle darkness, the darkness of a room at the end of the day. You breathe in, slowly, the air of the room, the faint smell of lamp oil and wool and stone, the cool night air coming very gently through the shutter, and you breathe out again, and your body is heavy and still and warm. And there is nothing, nothing at all, that needs to happen now. No more walking, no more sounds to listen to, no more things to see, just the slow and gentle dark, and the sound of your own breathing, and the last faint warmth of the lamp on the shelf. In and out, the city sleeps. The stones are cool and still beneath the night sky, the streets empty and silent, the fountain running in the quiet square, the Tiber moving in the dark, brown and slow and unhurried, the same as it always was, the same as it always will be. You are here, in the simple room, with the familiar walls, and the wool blanket, and the smell of the night. And you can sleep now. You can let everything go very gently. Let the day drift away behind you like the smoke from a lamp that has just gone out, rising slowly, thinning, dispersing, gone. Just breathe in and out. The night is warm and long and very, very still, and you are safe and comfortable, and you can rest now. Rest now. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. The city breathes slowly in the dark, and so do you. Slowly, gently, rest.